Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on our webinar. I'm excited to talk about design thinking today, right? I think we're going to wait a little bit as attendees come into the room. But panel, how are we doing today?
Doing great, Ron. Thank you very much for having me. The weather has finally turned in New Jersey. I don't know if anyone is from the area, but we've had more rain than I can remember in my lifetime, and the sun has been shining the past couple of days.
Yeah, very frigid outside in New Jersey right now, unfortunately. But I guess it's that time of the year, you know?
Interesting. Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Look forward to the session.
Yep.
Thank you, Rohan.
So I think we might go ahead and start. I think enough people are in here. So welcome everybody this morning to our design thinking webinar, your roadmap to next generation app development and modernization. In this webinar, we're going to explore how to discover new opportunities for innovation, new opportunities to improve customer experience, and operational excellence by leveraging design thinking principles with a practical focus and quantifiable output. Now, to start things off, I kind of wanted to get the perspective of a successful design thinker, maybe the most successful design thinker in the history of the world. That's none other than Steve Jobs. And as you can see from the quote, he says that most people make the mistake of thinking that design is what it looks like. People think it's this veneer, that the designers are handed this box and told, make it look good. That's not what we think the design is. It's not just what it looks like and feels like. Design thinking is how it works. And I might have added that thinking part, but I think he would also agree. I think keeping this perspective in mind throughout this presentation will do you some good, as I think it rings very, very true, especially right now with all the changes of technology that are happening today. Now, quickly before we start too, I wanted to showcase the importance of design thinking by giving you some examples of really, really successful companies who have leveraged these principles to its benefits. So design thinking has truly transformed the future of food delivery in particular. An intuitive app that offered personal recommendations, seamless ordering, and real-time tracking, millions have savored the fruits of Uber Eats' mission to make eating well effortless for everyone, everywhere. Meanwhile, Airbnb's founders practiced empathetic travel. They intuitively grasped that users sought certain things in temporary lodging. So armed with a high-quality camera, they showcased every room and special features in listings such as pools and other things. By highlighting neighborhoods, their design thinking approach swiftly doubled Airbnb's revenue, shifting their focus from scalability to more user-centric solutions. And finally, Netflix's continued triumph lies in its relentless pursuit of innovation. In 2011, it astutely recognized viewers' hunger for original, unconventional content unavailable on traditional networks. Then again in 2016, it revamped the user experience, incorporating snappy trailers into its interface that has become synonymous with streaming in that industry. Now I'd like to take you through the agenda for today. First, we'll learn about design thinking principles, so how it works, and also some potential pitfalls to avoid. Next, we'll go through a core competences approach and also run you through a case study about how you can adapt design thinking to your needs. Next, we're going to make it real, and we're going to talk about how design thinking can work for you listening to this webinar right now, no matter what industry you live in, or sorry, you work in. Next, we will go through the future of design thinking and talk about how artificial intelligence and new technologies will change the landscape. And finally, we'll leave you with some key takeaways from today's webinar and also mention how core competence can help. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists for today. We have a very experienced team presenting, and we will also be available for questions and answers after the session. So first, we have Dr. Jimmy Jain. Dr. Jimmy Jain is a thought leader on the Forbes Coaches Council, and he's a coach that helps you unlock your innate potential and rediscover yourself. He's also the founder of Society of Design Thinking Professionals. Jimmy, thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next, we have Christian Twist. Christian Twist is the Chief Digital Officer of Core Competence and has over 20 years of experience in web, mobile, and marketing technologies. He has worked with some of the biggest, most prospective brands in the world, developing innovative programs to improve the customer experience and operational excellence. Christian, welcome.
Thank you, Rohan. I'm looking forward to presenting.
Finally, we have Cheryl Joseph. Cheryl has 13 years of experience in the IT industry, having started her career as a coder, and today she is a certified master design thinking practitioner. She handles the delivery of large-scale programs by understanding technology that translates customer needs and is thus a winner of managing client expectations. Cheryl, thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Rohan, and looking forward.
Great. So a few housekeeping points before we begin. There will be a question and answer session after the main presentation. You can ask questions at any time using the panel on the interface. All lines will be on mute both during and after the session. And there will also be a survey and a very, very important email that will hit your inbox at the end of the session. So make sure to keep your eyes peeled for that. And with that said, without further ado, I'd like to hand over the floor to Dr. Jimmy Jain, who's going to run us through design thinking principles and how it works.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, Rohan, and welcome all of you to this program. If you can hear me and if you can see me, you can go to your chat window and type AV, A for audio, V for video. Since we are, on this webinar mode, this is just to reconfirm that yes, you can hear us well, you can see us well. Now, quickly moving forward, I also want you to grab a pen and a paper or a pencil in case if you have. Maybe if you don't have, quickly grab it. If you have it, that's fantastic. Because design thinking is about doing design. It's not just thinking. So I think I'm presuming that you have the pen, pencil, and the paper, and I would want you to draw something. Yes, you heard me right. I would want you to draw. Now, if you look at design thinking, it's some of you might be aware of what design thinking is. Some of you might have gone to Google to understand what design thinking is. Now, if you see, Google says design thinking is a creative problem solving technique. But to me, design thinking is a way of life. Design thinking can immensely help you not only in your professional life, but in your personal life as well. And let me confess something. It's very difficult for me to coin a statement about and define what design thinking is. However, for the benefit of everyone, what I see design thinking is, it talks about certain creative strategies which designers use using the process of designing. So in design thinking, the objective is not to make you a designer, but to make you think like a designer, so that you can apply that learning into business and in social contexts. And to understand that, let's draw. The pen and paper is there with you. Please draw, and you have only 15 seconds to draw each of these things what I'm going to tell you. Draw some mountains. Okay, I'm sure mountains easy. Draw some birds. Okay, draw a face of a baby. Okay, the next one is draw a door. Not the Jim Morrison's door, but the door. And draw a house. House probably will take a little more time than all the other things what you might have drawn. Draw a house. And the last one, draw innovation. Whatever comes to you, don't write innovation, whatever image comes to your mind when you think of innovation, just draw that. Now, what I have done is, before the session began, I had also drawn all these things, and this is how my drawing looks like. Now, if you see what you have drawn, and if you see what I have drawn, probably there's a similarity. And let me quickly, have some response in the chat window. Why for yes? That yes, there is some similarity. It may not be same, but it's similar. Yeah, you will realize that the moment we say mountains, we think in the we end up thinking in the same direction. We say birds, we actually end up making those letter R's. By the way, I had told you to draw a house, but I think majority of us have actually drawn a hut. And I would not be surprised if I say draw a sun. The sun probably is rising just behind those mountains. What does this mean? This means that there's a lot of conditioning which has gone into us. And if we have to innovate, now design thinking is a framework for us to innovate. Now, if we have to innovate, we must understand this conditioning and break this conditioning. For example, going little deeper into this, if I ask you what is the opposite of color black, immediately the answer would be white. Similarly, if I ask you what is the opposite of love, the immediate answer would be hate. Now, if I ask you what is the opposite of courage, most of us will say probably it is being timid or being cowardice. But in our society today, the opposite of courage is conformity. We confirm. No wonder, if you look at drawings, what we have drawn, they probably confirm to one single thought. And what design thinking talks about is how can we diverge and think differently from what we have been doing. Now let's take a step back. White and black are just two colors, not opposite to each other. Similarly, love and hate, two very strong emotions. The opposite of love is actually indifference, right? And as I said about courage and conformity. Now, before we move forward and understand what design thinking is, there's a small video we will watch, right? So yeah, can we have the video, please? We're right here. So we're right here. We just put.
I make stuff up. Okay.
Look at what's happening now. There have been fundamental changes in the way people think about problems, the kinds of problems they consider, and certainly the impact on design.
My definition of design thinking is applying the methodologies and approaches of design to a broader set of issues and problems in business and society.
So many people think that it's kind of like in your genes. You're a creative person or you're not. I don't buy that.
Prototyping, testing, failing all the time, but failing quickly and cheaply in order to succeed.
A big part of it with city governments is just getting them comfortable with the idea of experimentation. It's totally antithetical to the culture of startups in Silicon Valley. Try something, if it doesn't work, throw it out and start again.
Now, when the government came to us and asked us to redesign the ballot, we said we wouldn't redesign the ballot, but what we would do is redesign the election experience.
If I didn't have to just pick a boring, ugly bike, pre-built off the shelf, if I got to choose the color of the frame, the color of the wheels, what would my bike look like?
I think it was called the Flower Power was the internal name for one of the iMacs, and it wasn't a success. It lasted in the marketplace for 6 months.
Some people are saying, oh, I hate the word design thinking.
If you're only thinking, then you're not doing. Some of the aspects of design thinking are simply suggesting that designers are not thinking.
It doesn't matter what the problem is, I can go in and solve it because I'm a designer.
I once had a guy come to me and literally say, it ain't show art, kid. It's show business.
Why is it that big, huge corporations get beaten by kids in garages?
The thing that excites me the most about this, and I think excites most people, is we have a chance to really move the needle. We have a chance to make a difference on a significant level when we get all these pieces moving together. That's what gets me up every day.
So if you see the video, So we're talking about the complete experience, not just looking at one piece of the business, right? Now, having said that, easier said than done, because biases play a very critical role when we apply design thinking, because design thinking is also called as human-centric design. And when I say human-centric design, everything revolves around the user as a customer. However, the practitioners are also human beings at the end of the day. So there is something called as a practitioner's bias, which may creep in. Now, people from the psychology background would appreciate that there are more than 100 biases, but in design thinking practice, we primarily focus on just 4. If we are aware of these 4, it can really help us to quickly move into the world of, or be a better design thinking practitioner. And these 4 biases are self-serving bias, cognitive fluency, sunk cost fallacy, and confirmation bias. Let me spend about 30 seconds each on them. Now, if you look at self-serving bias, what it talks about is that whatever I do, I'm the best. If you're able to understand me, it's not because you are good in understanding, because I am good in explaining, right? And self-serving bias in design thinking is very dangerous, because if I think my observations are the best observations, well, it may deprive me of some interesting observations which others might have made. Cognitive fluency. Now, our brain is wired in such a fashion that anything which is easier for the brain to process, we think it is true. It may not be true though, but brain tends to think that's what it is true. And the kind of words we use will actually get the similar responses. If I may ask you a question, that are you happy with your social life? Or if I may ask another question which says, are you unhappy with your social life? Now see, what am I doing? Knowingly, unknowingly, I'm making you think in one particular direction. Well, it may not be a right way to really understand what the customer needs are. Now, probably the better question or neutral question to neutralize cognitive fluency is, if we have to relook at the way your social life is there anything you want to happen differently? So we're not talking about being happy or unhappy, so on and so forth. Now, if you look at the third one, the sunk cost fallacy, I've seen this quite a lot. A lot of us stay invested in a project because we have been working on that project for a long time. And we think that, how can I give it up? Because I put a lot of money, resources, time, so let me hold on to this. Now, if you really overcome that sunk cost fallacy, what it says is, look at the future gains and benefits, not at the past investments. And the most dangerous of one is called the confirmation bias. We all have our beliefs, and what we do is, when we are looking for an evidence, we look at the evidence which will confirm those beliefs, and then we say, look, in any case, I knew it. Now, these 4 biases, if you can make yourself aware of, you cannot remove them, you can just be aware. It really help you to become a better practitioner of design thinking. Let's quickly move forward. And when you say a design thinker, for every time, the job for a design thinking practitioner is to question everything around you. Why are things the way they are? So we observe, and when we observe, we understand better. When we understand, we reflect better, and when we reflect better, we make things better. So for design thinking practitioner, everything, for example, the chair or the table what you are using right now is also a prototype, is not a finished product, which can be made better. Right now, the word design thinking has been made very popular by the Stanford D School, and what they say is, let's quickly move forward from here. Now, these are the 5 stages of design thinking process: empathy, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Well, they look like they are in sequence. However, they are very, very iterative, which means, you go to the next slide, please. This is how it looks like. We can be in any stage and we can go back to any. POV stands for point of view. For example, we are looking at a particular point of view, we can actually go back and understand the problem better. While we are making a prototype, we can actually go and understand the user requirements better. So in design thinking, what we really say is, fail early, fail cheaply, so that we can succeed sooner. I replace the word fail with learn. We learn early, we learn quickly, and so that we can succeed sooner. Right now, I think this was a little overview, if I may say, about design thinking. If you have any question, I'll be more than happy to answer as we move forward. Thank you. Rohan, back to you.
Thank you, Jimmy, for that really good intro into design thinking. I'm looking at my illustrations here though, and it looks like I might have to just stick with thinking about design thinking and not actually designing anything. But anyway, thank you for that, Jimmy. And now I'd like to hand it over to Christian, who's going to tell us about the core competence approach and how you can adopt the principles to the practice. Christian, over to you.
Thank you, Rohan. Thank you, Jimmy. I think at this point, I'm sure a lot of you are wondering how design thinking can actually work in the real world when at most companies, your budget and the overall scope of the project is approved long before you actually start. It seems like a classic chicken and egg scenario. Design thinking, as Jimmy has described it, and as some of you may be aware before the webinar, is a process to generate innovative solutions for what to build. But in the real corporate world, what you're going to build is usually decided sometimes at a very high level of detail well in advance. It's also important to note that there is going to be a lot of variance by industry. Each industry is going to have its own unique use cases, but there are going to be some similarities between them. Of critical importance is taking advantage of the iterative process that Jimmy described, where you have these divergent and convergent phases. The goal is to begin with broad-based research and analysis of your potential ideas to synthesize them into a simple and clear definition of your overall needs. It's only after that you have this definition established that you can really diverge again to expand upon that hypothesis before you do this final convergence on the phase one design of your solution. In the banking and financial industry, though, for example, you might begin this process with a lot of data that you already have that was generated based on your transactions or your account history or something similar. Whereas in healthcare or manufacturing, gathering the data could well be a part of the project itself. Likewise, in the financial industry or healthcare, you could begin this process with a reasonably clear idea for a product. Perhaps it's a new app or customer portal, a new customer onboarding process, or some outcomes-driven research platform. But in manufacturing, there could be some significant technical and engineering considerations across things like your plants and supply chains that need to be addressed before you can finalize the design. In just about all of these cases, however, the two-step diverge and converge process will ultimately help ensure a positive outcome. Lastly, it's important to keep in mind that design thinking requires a combination of hard technical and creative skills that are going to be unique to a person based on their education, temperament, and training. You see these depicted on the left-hand side of the screen, but just as importantly, there are more generalized, softer skills that are necessary across all of these resources to help guarantee your success. Things like communications and problem solving. Interesting to note, these soft skills are becoming more and more desirable throughout the entire technology industry if you look at any recent surveys or data. Companies that elevate their organizations, whether through design thinking or another strategy, really do require both in today's competitive environment. Of course, a typical project doesn't necessarily follow the converge and diverge process or include a set number of team members with a set amount of skills. We all know the phases that you can see on the screen right now. We call them the 4 Ds: discovery, design, development, and deployment. You might be asking yourself, where does design thinking fit in? The short answer, in my opinion anyway, is everywhere, as long as you're very careful to leverage these principles strategically and judiciously. The challenge is if you open the floor up to everyone in the company, you're going to have too many competing demands and too many ideas to bring it down to a successful conclusion. But if you open it only up to a tight group especially a group of only managers, directors, or executives, you're not going to have enough input from the ground or a broad enough range of ideas. Balance in this case is as important as anything else that you are going to do. In our opinion, balance is achieved primarily by having the right perspective on the purpose of software in your organization. Contrary to what many technologists might claim, software doesn't exist for its own sake. It doesn't even exist for the company's sake. It exists to augment your users, to make them more productive, to make them more efficient, and to make them more accurate in performing their job functions. To paraphrase a famous United States president, ask what your software can do for them first and foremost. And always remember, most users are not technical. They are only focused on the outcome and how it helps them, how the software meets their needs, and whether or not it makes their lives easier. This means you have to make sure the user that's going to be working in the software, potentially most of their day, is at the center of everything you do. From defining the objectives based on desired outcome in plain language, to identifying the requirements based on the actual experience of the user. Ultimately, it's important to leave that in-depth technical talk and technical jargon to the actual developers. You also need to make sure that you are working the process instead of having the process work you. Development in general tends to be the longest phase of most projects. It could be a year, 2 years, or even more for a complex implementation. But approached correctly, the agile methodology offers significant benefits. In a sense, you can think of agile as the logical extension of design thinking throughout the full project lifecycle. Both of these methodologies are iterative, they have multiple touch points, and plenty of opportunity to innovate throughout. Agile development lets you respond in almost real time, and the use of user stories rather than technical requirements keeps the focus on what the software actually does rather than how it technically does it. In addition, doing scheduling based on increments of time, what we refer to as time box scheduling, rather than units of work, helps you plan and adapt to changing needs throughout the life cycle of the project. Perhaps the best way to understand how design thinking can work for you is to illustrate it with an example of a real-world project that we completed for a real customer with real users. In this case, Core Competence was tasked with reimagining a mission-critical system used by well over 100 people at a large international organization. The system in question processes around 400,000 transactions annually and is considered by the company to be a critical part of their customer experience. But at the time, it was based on older software and design standards. It was hosted on IBM mainframe, making it cumbersome to use, slow, laggy, buggy, and very difficult to upgrade, maintain, and support. Before we began reimagining the system, however, we were careful to partner with the client's leadership team to ensure that we had a very solid foundation for success. This included the identification of clear, actionable goals written in plain language that everyone could understand and that were measurable at the end of the project, the various teams that would be engaged throughout the life cycle, information gathered from select team members in advance to organize our groups into various work streams and maximize collaboration and innovation, and the rules that would govern the engagement if something unexpected comes up, as it often will in large technology projects. We understood from the very beginning that this single application modernization effort could not be everything to everybody. So we carefully confirmed what we were trying to achieve and who we were trying to achieve it with. This gave us the benefit of having a fixed conceptual target but how we got there and what we propose to ultimately meet that target was given complete freedom. The guardrails that I mentioned a moment ago were critical, but they were also exceedingly simple. Just two things. First, we couldn't reorganize the company or impact processes outside the core team that used the application in question. Second, we were limited to the application in question. We couldn't make changes to other applications or change the data used for various integration points in a global organization, except in very limited predefined use cases. Essentially, we were able to come up with whatever innovative strategies and user experiences we wanted for this particular application, but we had to maintain the integrity of the organization and the overall technology ecosystem. Iteration and innovation were, of course, integral to the project. They were baked into everything we did and every final deliverable. This was achieved by having regular sessions that were focused on each of the main topics that we had decided in advance in a rotating concurrent manner. The topics included user experience, automation opportunities, and data and the display of insights. A governance model was also leveraged where key stakeholders met weekly to ensure the product was producing the necessary innovation, and collaboration throughout was, of course, extremely important. The workflows, processes, and key aspects of the user experience were all developed and refined in real time together using a combination of web-based software and online meeting tools. These were then distributed in a more polished form for offline review and approval. Believe it or not, the entire project was completed virtually in just about 4 months, and we did not actually meet in person until we presented our findings to leadership at an on-site meeting. In total, there were over 300 pages of materials that were developed throughout the project, plus the new user experience and process flows. All of these deliverables were developed and measured against the objectives identified at the beginning and evaluated based on whether we would ultimately achieve the project goals. The result was a completely reimagined user experience, the identification of more than a dozen new features to help solve business challenges and offer competitive advantage for the organization, and a scalable model, both from a technology and a user perspective, that would better integrate teams and offline processes, all of which fully supported the original objectives. Of course, nothing is more important to most organizations than being able to prove return on investment, that a dollar spent on a new system is going to result in even more dollars saved for the company. In this case, we closed the project by conducting a survey of users and tests of users to identify how much time the new user interface alone was expected to save. As you can see from the range of savings presented on the screen here, the numbers are significant. It's also important to remember that this return on investment only accounts for a percentage of the expected savings because it doesn't consider other improvements across increased collaboration, onboarding, training, and support, plus ongoing application maintenance, all of which should generate significant return on investment over time as well. Lastly, I want to leave you with a short video that demonstrates some key aspects of the application in action. As Jimmy mentioned earlier, the screen may flicker for a minute as the video comes up. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Christian, for showing us a little bit about how core competence practices design thinking. Now I'd like to turn it over to Cheryl Joseph, who is going to talk about how you guys who are listening to this can practice design thinking for your companies. Cheryl, you take it away.
Thank you for anchoring this webinar, Rohan. And thank you, Jimmy and Christian, for setting the context on the concepts of design thinking and also showcasing how we have been able to take design thinking to our customers. We have spoken design thinking in conversations across tables, and many of us, it sounds great in theory. But how can we experience design thinking and its practical adaptation for day-to-day work? How can we empower our teams and our organization to adapt to its principles? Maybe we have heard of some of this before, tried practicing its principles without knowing the current terminology, succeeded in some, failed in a few. We would also have felt that not all of us are Steve Jobs operating on an Apple-type budget, therefore may not be able to reap the benefits of design thinking. But that's not true. The truth is, every project within an organization can adapt to design thinking. Every phase of a project or a program lifecycle could map itself to the principles of design thinking. Be it a technology project that has a user interface and supports a process flow, or a completely back-end driven data project with simple to complex queries, there's always a good chance you can reap the rewards of design thinking. We've included a few examples here. Certainly, custom app development, modernization, or product development makes us visually understand how design thinking can be helpful, but anything that touches your customers and impacts their experience is always a candidate. Your core systems can also benefit from this process, or even your very own automation projects. If you are in the middle of a project now or considering starting one from scratch, ask yourself, are we empathizing with our customers with absolutely no prejudgment on what they need? Are we going in with a blank slate to capture the requirements? Ask the same question to your customers on how they have been able to gather the requirements of their users, and you might receive an answer you did not anticipate. But I'm hoping you will now be armed with the tools to change perspectives. Of course, every organization is unique, as is every team within the organization. We cannot, in this one webinar, tell you what is best for your needs of your organization. But we can initiate the thought process by suggesting valuable questions you can ask yourself and your colleagues to determine how design thinking can help your organization. The questions on the screen now are not intended to be comprehensive, but to illustrate how to approach a potential project and generate feedback. The goal is to get beneath the surface, to understand what is really holding you back, what will move you forward, and whether you have explored the space of all potential solutions to determine the ideal path. There will always be unknown unknowns, but that does not mean you cannot use design thinking to get ahead of them, ensuring your success today and tomorrow. In the next slide, I've taken to a quick illustration of how I have been adapting design thinking as a way of life. Right from being a working mother and understanding the needs of my teen daughter by putting myself in her shoes, multitasking for the family by understanding and empathizing with the needs of the home, to being an associate director working for my customers and empathizing with them on every aspect of the program through all phases, including initiation, commercials, gathering requirements, assessing the right project methodology, and tech stack that best suits the company's needs, considering the mighty legacy and the future of the organization, thus dedicating the best of skills at the right hour of execution, control, and support. To quote a quick example, in a very recent project implementation, the customer wanted to best use the out-of-box features of a system, but felt hard to fit in all of their needs. Being an implementation partner for the customer, we should have ideally pursued for maximum use of the default features, especially with the customer inclined towards it. but through personalized interviews with users and having ideated along with them, helped us liaison with the sponsors of the project on certain needs that had to be customized to ease the use of application for users who would actually be using the system day in and day out. For quick pondering thoughts, as closing comments of this part of this webinar, I'd like to quote renowned design thinkers that we spend a lot of time designing the bridge, but not enough time thinking about the people who are crossing it. It's not us versus them, or even us on behalf of them. For a design thinking practitioner, it always has to be us with them. Thank you, and over to Rohan for the upcoming section.
Thank you, Cheryl. I appreciate that kind of perspective on how you people who are listening to this webinar at your office can use design thinking for your own company. Next, I'd like to run through and give you a little bit of a glimpse of the future of design thinking, and especially how artificial intelligence and new technologies are going to change the app development and modernization landscape. So to talk about the future, first we have to look to where we were at the past. And I'd like to start this with prototyping in the past. So prototyping has always been a very crucial phase in both design thinking and also app development. And traditionally, prototyping involves manually creating wireframes and mockups to visualize the user interface and functionality. So as you can see from the slide here, this originally was done on paper models, and it was very human and labor intensive, with people having to draw out all of the actual features and all of the text that you would see on, say, an app. Now, with more technology and with the increase in use of technology, this has become somewhat easier. So as you can see now, we have digital prototypes, which cuts the labor cost and the time that it takes to make prototypes, but it's still very human labor intensive, as you can see. So now, one of the biggest trends that we're going to see in the future is the advent of AI-enabled prototyping. So the advent of AI has revolutionized prototyping, which makes it faster, more efficient, and smarter. AI-driven tools analyze your project requirements and generate wireframes automatically. They can also understand natural language descriptions and convert them into visual prototypes, like you can see on the screen here. We just inputted certain adjectives and trims and features like expensive, designer, patterned, and a camp color, and this AI program immediately within seconds gave us this really designer shirt thing. Yeah. And AI-enabled prototyping has a multitude of advantages. The first thing is obviously speed. AI can generate prototypes in minutes rather than hours or days. It also improves accuracy. AI tools understand complex design instructions, reducing misinterpretation that usually happens between two humans who are talking about things. It also enables iteration. So prototyping with AI allows rapid testing and modification, which improves the final product eventually. And you wouldn't think so, but AI-enabled prototyping also improves collaboration. Team members can provide input in real time and thereby enhance the collaborative process. And actually, it makes the whole process more user-centered. AI-driven prototypes align with user expectations more, which enhances the user experience. So these are only a couple of advantages of AI-enabled prototyping. And if we can go to the next slide, this is just another example of a AI-enabled prototyping product called Framer, which their tagline is AI generated, human curated. As you can see, it's just a small text box where you can enter something like if you want to design a portfolio page for your photographer friend, just a simple instruction and a click of a button kind of creates an entire portfolio website for your photographer friend within minutes. And this is going to be more and more commonplace in the next couple of years. Now, another trend is insights from big data. So in the digital age, there are vast amounts of data that are generated daily, and extracting meaningful insights from this data has become a really critical aspect of decision making. Nobody does this better than Netflix, as we mentioned earlier in the presentation. They create and they catalog so many different data points of the user experience, whether it comes from ratings, searches, even the moment where you pause in a program. They take that down and they note that and they feed into an algorithm which helps them make certain decisions about programming, about developing content, and also about marketing content to your people. And an insane stat that we actually found while researching for this webinar is that more than 80% of all content streamed on Netflix is discovered through the platform's own recommendation system. And this, really increases their bottom line, and it also sets them apart as the leader in a very, very crowded industry in the streaming wars, as you can say. Now, you might be wondering, this is okay for Netflix and everything, but how do I do this for my own company in not the streaming industry, but in your healthcare or your other business industries? And if we go to this slide, the big data spectrum, this is core competences data spectrum that we kind of try to take you up as you become a client of ours, and we try to give you our data analytics practice. So we start at the bottom, which is reporting and visualization. So this is things like your sales forecasting, channel reporting, inventory reporting, replenishment, and so on and so forth. Once we build these reporting and visualization capabilities in your company, we then leverage those to build purpose-built dashboards and analytic apps. These are things like your customer management, your P365 loyalty, campaign performance, and etc. As you kind of outgrow that, we move you again up the spectrum into more advanced analytics, like your customer insights, your segmentation, your campaign analytics, and recommendations. And finally, as you graduate to the topmost of our big data spectrum, we incorporate AI, machine learning, and deep learning into your company to make use of all this data that you are generating. This happens in this kind of is your image search, your objects labels, your in-store journey, your queue management, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, we try to bring you up on this big data spectrum so that you can use all that data that you undoubtedly are making within your business and actually put it to good use. And finally, the last thing I wanted to kind of touch on in this future of design thinking and with AI and automation coming is intelligent automated testing. So traditional testing methods often require significant time and resources, whereas intelligent automated testing leverages AI and automation to streamline this testing process. So there are a couple of key components of this testing. First, as we say, is AI. AI algorithms analyze test results, they detect patterns, they predict potential issues, and machine learning improves test cases over time. The second is test automation. So automated repetitive testing tasks reduce manual effort. They also create test scripts and execute them across various different devices and platforms. And there are a couple of benefits to intelligent automated testing. First, you have faster testing cycles, therefore speeding up the development process and having accelerated time to market. The next thing is higher test coverage, which reduces the risk of undiscovered issues. Another thing is improved accuracy, reducing human errors. And finally, there is a bunch of cost savings due to the reduced manual testing efforts. So this was a little bit of a glimpse into the future of design thinking with AI and automation on the horizon, and things that are going to be extremely commonplace in the next couple of years that you can kind of look to and look into investing in the future. So with that, I'd like to give it over to Christian, who is going to run us through some of the key takeaways from this webinar and how we at Core Competence can help you with your design thinking practice. Christian, it's over to you. Christian, can you hear me? I think you might be on mute.
So in terms of key takeaways, we have discussed quite a bit, but ultimately design is more than how something appears, It's how it really works in the real world. Design thinking principles are engineered to develop products, modernize apps, implement software solutions efficiently and effectively with innovation by prioritizing end users, customers, and stakeholders. These principles can be applied to almost any technology project, and your organization can benefit immediately by adapting them as a way of life. It is true that next generation technologies will change and augment these principles, but they will not replace them. As we saw earlier, the soft skills, if anything, are becoming more important than ever. Core competence, of course, is here to help if you need it. Talking about core competence a little bit, we are a total technology transformation services provider with 20 years of experience. As trusted partners of Microsoft, SAP, Oracle, Salesforce, Kentago, and others, we drive value and deliver excellence, serving mid-sized to enterprise-level clients, specializing in full stack, ERP, CRM, cloud, data, analytics, web, and e-commerce solutions. Our Engage service line is focused on front-end technologies related to customer engagement and providing a 360-degree view of your customers. Our Enable practice helps drives operational excellence by improving business functions using industry-wide best practices and enterprise best-in-class technology solutions. Accelerate is geared toward propelling your business forward with cutting-edge and emerging technologies. The overall goal across these service lines is to solve business challenges and gain competitive advantage for our customers by maximizing their return on investment in best-in-class technology solutions. We can help by working with your team and assessing the organization's current digital landscape and strategic objectives. Together, we identify areas where digital transformation can have the most impact. We facilitate brainstorming sessions and workshops to generate innovative ideas and concepts for digital solutions. We help you create rapid prototypes and conduct testing with end users to gather feedback and refine concepts. We also help you implement and integrate emerging technologies like artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, data analytics, and cloud-first solutions with the goal of creating innovative and efficient digital products and services. We also provide custom tailored solutions that meet the specific app, web, and mobile needs and goals of your organization. Lastly, we offer training and ongoing support for both platforms we implement and third-party platforms that are already in place to ensure that your organization's teams can effectively implement and maintain their digital solutions. With that, I'm going to turn the floor back to Rohan to moderate the Q&A.
Yep. So as I said before, you can ask any questions in the panel on the interface at any time. We got a couple of questions while we were talking and we were presenting earlier, and I'm going to ask some of them right now. So the first question is to Cheryl. This person wants to know, does design thinking work only for software development, or can it be used to implement a CRM or an ERP as well?
Great question, Rohan, thank you. We believe design thinking can work for any project that includes configurable or customizable user interfaces or process flows. For a platform implementation like a CRM or an ERP, you might be more limited to how the experience itself can be handled, but the general principle of understanding and empathizing with the user and what the user does at each point, and by maximizing the utility in the real world, still applies through the principles of design thinking. I hope that helps.
Great, and I do want to be mindful of everybody's time here, so I think we have time for just one more question. And this question is to Christian, and it says, what roles on the customer side are required to fully support design thinking?
Thank you, Rohan. That's an excellent question. We found the most success when organizations adopt the product and agile nomenclatures. Whether it's a custom software development project, an ERP, or a CRM, you really want to identify a product owner. That product owner is responsible for interfacing with the business stakeholders on the customer side to filter their requirements and make decisions about the importance of their requirements, both in the design thinking phase and then ultimately in the design and development phases as well. This provides a gateway between the technical teams that are implementing the project and the business teams that are using the product. It also encapsulates knowledge and decision-making in a non-technical person that understands the objectives and can evaluate different options, perhaps better than anyone else. The other role is the traditional project manager that helps coordinate these different teams. Generally speaking, these days, that role would be filled by a scrum master, someone that's got experience in the agile space.
Great. And I think actually, unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank each and every one of you who is listening to this webinar right now for giving us your time. And there, again, will be a very important email coming to everybody's inbox, as well as a survey. So if you could please keep your eyes peeled for that, that'd be great. Other than that, thank you to our panelists, and thank you to everybody who's watching or spending some time with us here today. And hope you have the great rest of your day. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.